welcome to the lesson for the first lesson for this week, because I am going to send you a second one. What I've decided to do is rather than give you one massive lesson which essentially takes you loads and loads of time, I've split it in half so it's more manageable. So if you've got your books, this is the title that you're going to use. If you haven't got your books, do it on Word, Microsoft Word, on a laptop, computer, whatever it might be, or if you haven't got that, do it on paper, etc. But you must keep this work. It's going to become important, obviously, when you're in year 11. So title says 1700 to 1900, medicine in the 18th and 19th century. This period of time, 1700 to 1900, as I've got here, as you can see with my cursor, that indicates the industrial period. Okay, so whereas before you've looked at 1500 to 1700, which is otherwise known as the Renaissance period, this is the industrial period now. Now what you're going to look at, so we've looked at the industrial period before, because remember we've been looking at this thematically. So how did the understanding of the cause of disease change through time? And you remember we did the Middle Ages, then we did the Renaissance, then we did the industrial period, and then the 20th century. So the last time we looked at the industrial period, that's when we were looking at things to do with Pasteur and Koch. Remember the discovery of germs causing disease, and Koch finding the specific bacteria that causes specific diseases, etc. So now we're back in that period of time again, but look here, we're looking at prevention and treatment. Okay, so we're now looking at how did prevention and treatment change or stay the same in this period of time compared to when we looked at it in the Renaissance. Okay, so that's that. So first task says, as you can see from the title, was there change or continuity in prevention and treatment 1700 to 1900? But as with every single period of time, the first thing you always have to do is recap, go back and look at what you already know. Okay, and I set you this work on Seneca. So if you are stuck, you're like, I don't remember what we looked at with the Renaissance, go back on Seneca. If you can't find the link, email me and say, sir, how do I get back on there? But as you can see here, I've said recap what you already know about treatments and prevention in the Renaissance period, 1500 to 1700. And then for each box here, if you want, because some of you sent the work to me where you've just edited the PowerPoint slide and then sent it back to me. If that's what you prefer to do, cool, so be it. But if you're doing it in your book, or if you're doing it on Microsoft Word, you can set it out however you want, but I just happen to have done it in the table. So in the Renaissance period, just recap for me like 3 or 4 bullet points. What do they do to treat people? If you're stuck in like, I don't understand, I don't remember, that's when we're looking at things like herbal remedies. They were experimenting with chemicals, etc. Prevention methods in the Renaissance period. So how did they try to stop people getting diseases in the Renaissance period? Who was responsible for medical care in the Renaissance period, and what were hospitals like in the Renaissance period? So your first task is to recap what happened in the 1500s to 1700s, because you can't answer this question at the top, was there change or continuity in prevention and treatment? You can't answer that question if you can't remember first and foremost what took place between 1500 and 1700. So once you've done that, like say, write it in your book, Microsoft Word. I prefer it if you did Microsoft Word or edit this PowerPoint so I can actually mark your work and see what you're doing. Okay, next task now. So now we get onto the 1700s and 1900s and start to look at, well, what can we learn from this? Was there change or continuity in prevention and treatment 1700 to 1900? Now look at this first thing. I've said read the Word document. When I email this task to you, there will be several attachments with it. One of them will be a massive Word document, which is about 3 pages long. Okay, read the first section, which will say treatments and preventions. It says read that document and explain what changed and what continued. Continued means stays the same in treatments and preventions between the Renaissance period and the industrial period. Okay, so again, on Microsoft Word for this first task, or if you're editing the PowerPoint, whatever it is you're doing, I want you to read that first section on the Microsoft Word document that I send you, and what has changed and what has stayed the same between what you've put in for the Renaissance period and what happened in the industrial period, 1700 to 1900. Then the extension, I've just said, when we studied the causes of disease in the period 1700 to 1900, what was the key change that would impact all aspects of medicine? So when we looked at what changed in this period, 1700 to 1900, when we looked at what changed in this period, in terms of the understanding of the cause of disease, what I'm basically saying in this question here is, what was the key thing that happened in this time with regards to the understanding of the cause of disease, and why might that impact ideas around prevention and treatment? Okay, so that's what this last question means. How would that change, or how would that impact ideas around treatments and prevention? Okay, and then so that's it. Those first like 3 slides are just about treatments and prevention. Then I want us to go on to medical care and hospitals. So again, remember in slide 2, you've recapped what happened in the 1500s and 1700s. So as I was saying, sorry, I had to pause it there. I'm not sure if you realise that on the clip. But anyways, so this part now we're looking at medical care and hospitals. So again, if you go back to slide 2, I said to you recap what happened in the 1500s and 1700s in terms of medical care. Remember, physicians, surgeons, care in the home, etc. And then recap 1500s, 1700s, what happened in hospitals. Now, between 1700 and 1900, a famous woman comes along. Pretty much all of you should have heard this name, Florence Nightingale, before. This shouldn't be news to you. You should all have heard of her, the lady with the lamp, etc. So the key question I want you to look at is, well, what impact did Florence Nightingale have on medical care and hospitals? That's the big question you're answering. First things first, watch the clip. Okay, don't do any work, don't answer that question, just watch the clip to try and get an initial understanding, because sometimes you have to visualize this stuff, get initial understanding of who Florence Nightingale was, what's her importance, etc, etc. And then this question here, which you probably can't see because of my face, just says, what does the clip suggest about Nightingale's impact on hospital care? What that question basically means is, well, based on what you've watched in that clip, why is Nightingale important? What was her impact on hospitals? What did she change about hospitals? Some of you may know already without watching the clip, but do watch the clip, okay? And again, answer that question. Then slide 5, this one's the biggest one, okay? So it says, well, what impact did Florence Nightingale have on, again, same question, what impact did Florence Nightingale have on medical care and hospitals? But I've given you another clip to watch now. This one should be a bit easier. So watch this second clip as well. Then I said read page 76 to 79. I should have edited that. That's my fault. What I mean to say there is, then read the rest of the Word document. So on slide 3, when I said read the Word document, that's just the first section. You'll see that there are 3 different headings on the Word document, or 4 in fact. For this part now, you're reading section 2, 3 and 4. So heading number 2, heading number 3, heading number 4. And again, after you've read it, I've just said answer these 2 questions. How did Florence Nightingale influence hospital care, and what changes did she influence in hospitals by the 19th century? What that question means is, once Florence Nightingale has done all her work, how did hospitals change? So Nightingale has 2 impacts. On one hand, she influences changes in what people should do in the hospitals, but then there's another impact that she has in terms of how hospitals should be built and how they should be designed, etc. When you read that Word document, section 2, section 3 and section 4, you should have an understanding of what that means. Again, any problems, any questions, if you're not understanding, just email me and I'll make it clear. And then this last slide now, so this last slide says, now summarize overall how much change took place in hospitals between 1500, 1700 and 1700 to 1900. What changed, what stayed the same, be detailed in your response. And then what I've done at the bottom of the screen is I've created this like line graph. And again, I'm not sure how you'll see this. I don't know if my face is covering the right hand side, but basically you'll see continuity here and then change on this side here. And what I want you to do, you don't have to do things this way. You can set it out how you want. But what I'm basically saying is, in the Renaissance period, 1500 to 1700, and then in the industrial period, 1700 to 1900, what things just stayed the same? So what stayed the same in hospitals in those 2 periods? And by the end of 1700 to 1900, what are the big changes that have now come? So most of you might want to just split that as a table. So you do continuity this side and change this side. It's completely up to you. Obviously, I've put the title here, change or continuity in hospitals. Okay. There is only 6 slides to work through. Like I say, I'm going to send you another round of slides to work on, because I wanted to split the task up to make it more manageable. The more I give you, the more difficult it becomes, which is why I'm trying to chunk the tasks, so it's just easier to achieve. This overall, with watching the clips and everything, should take you no more than 40 minutes, I would imagine, maximum. The deadline for this is Thursday. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again for all the lazy people that don't do any work in the class. The deadline is Thursday. However, I'm sending you another task on Tuesday or Wednesday, and the deadline for that will be Friday. Okay, so bear that in mind. It's in your best interest to get the Monday one done as soon as possible. Any problems, you've got my school email, email me, etc. Cheers.